Hey, sports fans! Coach Nick here, and welcome to the B-Ball Breakdown live show. Coming at you, as always, after Game 6 of the NBA Finals, a literal beatdown by the Indiana Pacers over the Oklahoma City Thunder in Indiana. And as always, I'm joined by the referee, Chip Clark, to join us and help us break down the game and hear from you guys as well. So, Chip, how are you doing, my man?
I'm doing great. We got ourselves a Game 7, Coach.
I guess we're not surprised, right?
I mean, I'm not. I picked the Pacers to win this one. In fact, I had texted a few of my buddies prior to the game and said I'm picking Indy tonight. I didn't pick a blowout, obviously. Did not envision that coming, but I did say I felt like Siakam and Nembhard would have a big night. But they've done it by committee tonight. It's been one of those things where it was a very balanced scoring from the Pacers tonight, and everybody had their hand in it. And so, just incredible performance, and the energy was there from start to finish, like right out of the gate. It's something that they were missing last game, and they came out with a ton of energy, high pressure. I mean, it was just really fun to watch tonight.
Yeah. I mean, I know that there's a brief lead in the very beginning of the game by OKC, but it became downhill pretty quickly. And I think what I'm looking for in the beginning is Indiana going to get the ball moving? Are they getting like middle penetration? Are they spraying the ball out and getting shots? I got to check. We're not going to get the half breakdown of the box score for a few more minutes, but I'm not even sure that Indiana got a ton of threes in the first half. I know that OKC I think took 11 total, but at the very least we did see some of that notion where OKC wasn't jamming passing lanes as much. They were letting some penetration go through. But it'll be a really interesting breakdown to figure out exactly what the Pacers offense was doing to limit the three-point attempts. 11 is not a lot for anybody. No. And then B, why the ball was not moving at all and why the players were not moving at all on the Thunder offensive side. It was kind of gross. And it's one of those chicken or egg things where it's like, is a defense pressing and pushing up and causing them to sort of, not be able to move? Or are they simply not moving? And what are your thoughts on that?
I think it was a little of both. Credit Indiana for their pressure tonight on defense, chasing them off the three-point line. But then the ones that they did get were contested looks. But then there was a couple of just wide open missed threes. The Thunder couldn't drop it in the ocean in the first half. And sometimes you need a little bit of luck too, if you're the Pacers, So you're working hard. Your defense is out there getting in their face. And so that worked for them. But then OKC just couldn't take advantage of some of the open looks that they did have. And it was one of those things that's kind of snowballed. We talk about momentum from time to time of the makes, like when you're on a roll, but then sometimes you miss some and you can't see it go in, and it just stays with you. And that it seemed like it did that for OKC tonight, especially from behind the arc, where, even deep into the third quarter, they still only had 2 3-pointers, successful 3-pointers. So
we have to pay attention to how the cumulative mental effect that threes have on your team as a whole. Where we've seen, remember the Rockets went cold in a Game 7 against the Warriors a long time ago, and there's some notion of that. Well, damn, my teammate Lou Dort just missed 2 in a row. I got to make this one, and then that one's already missed before you take it because that's what you're thinking. And and on the flip side, Shepherd hits a 3 at the absolute buzzer. That's an easy shot when you're up by 24 or whatever it was, just let it fly. And Toppin was about the same way where, a couple of those or even Siakam's threes were just sort of like, once you give them a 20-point lead or whatever, that's going to really snowball as well. So,
OKC went on a pretty good run in quarter 3 to where they cut into that deficit, by 10 points, got it to an 18-point game from 28. And I'm thinking maybe they got something in the tank, and then Indiana just kind of blew the doors open. Toppin hitting a couple of threes, Shepherd hitting that one at the end of the third quarter to go up by 30 going into the fourth. Those are just daggers. So, and it's easy to hit them when you're up that big.
Part of that blowing off the doors was scoring layups in transition off of what shouldn't have been layups. They were in position to get back. I think SGA was one of them where he was the first guy back, and he just went to his man versus realizing that there's another guy streaking in behind him, and he was the only guy that really had a chance because I think it was J-Dub just didn't sprint the first 4 steps on the way down, and then at that point it's over because
Yep.
Gosh, I'm trying to picture who it was. It could have been Siakam or somebody got the layup.
I think it was it TJ McConnell?
TJ got one. It was like 2 in a row, right? It might have been
Okay.
TJ, but and TJ's fast. I want to talk to him and ask him, does he think that is he quicker and faster than most players in the NBA, or does he just run harder and faster because of that than everybody else?
That's a good question.
Well, let's get to our first super chat, shall we? We got Braun, best friend of the breakdown. Always great to see you, Braun. Thank you so much from Canada. Braun says Nembhard has a pretty mean shoulder bump, but without the SGA fan outrage. Yes, he had one. Chip, as a ref, what differences do you see between the two bumps? And there's a consistency to the way they drive. Nembhard is not getting the outrage. He might not get calls either, but he's not getting the fans upset. Why do you think that is?
I'm not sure. I think there's always that, anytime you have an MVP like SGA, and then there's I think the biggest difference why there's not as much fan outrage is because people don't view Nembhard as a foul merchant or free throw merchant or this, that, and the other one. It's the type of, like they talked about SGA's off arm all the time on drives to the basket. Okay. And then I think people just like to hate on SGA, to be honest with you. There's not a lot of difference in the two of those. The one we saw from Nembhard tonight. And then also there was one in the first half where it was no called and SGA went into Nembhard with the shoulder. I think that's the other one Braun's referencing. And I marked that down in my book as a correct no call, or excuse me, as a correct no call, because SGA goes in with the shoulder. It's not an elbow to wrist extension. There may be a little bit displacement, but Nembhard's backtracking. He's retreating a little bit as well. So it's harder to determine if it's displacement or not. Same thing goes for the other way around. The shoulder bump is something that is an effective tool if you use it correctly, especially on if it's on a defender that's not in legal guarding position. Mm-hmm. And if it's one of those things where there's not a ton of displacement and it's not an unnatural motion, they're not going to call that an offensive foul, whether it's on Nembhard or on SGA.
Yeah, I think it's a volume thing as well. Because the complaint you'll see about SGA, which is not true, is he does it every single time. And, the edit I can make right now of the drives where he's trying to draw the contact and doesn't get the call. It's probably maybe 10, 12 times in the series, in the 6 games. And okay, now let's talk about the number that he does get. It's probably like 12 times or maybe a little bit more than that. So it's not quite maybe like 50% that he gets it, but it's not every time. It's probably like 60% of the time as he's going. And there's in a lot. And by the way, of the ones he's getting, huge percentage are just fouls. Ho hum. What are you going to do? He's not in position. The one thing I will say though, and we've talked about this a little bit, even via text, is that that the arm push is one thing that can be something that people might have a little bit more of an argument about. Now that said, I'll go to I'll go to the grave with my argument about Michael Jordan not pushing off on that pullback that he did, and people will swear that he completely shoved Brian Russell down to the ground. So that's a toughie, but I do feel like there are X percent, 15% maybe the ones he's doing that, okay, those are a little bit extreme and maybe he's shucking a guy and they could call those.
Yeah, exactly. And really, those are very, very difficult plays to adjudicate live at game speed. We're refereeing the defender on those plays. And if you've got a moving defender, I've said this plenty of times, if you've got a moving defender involved, then it's going to be harder to tell if they are displaced, versus retreating, or if that arm push them off. That's why they held the elbow to wrist thing that I talk about. There was no elbow to wrist extension on the SGA one or the Nembhard one tonight. And so that's why it's not called, So in my opinion, those type plays are very, very tough to adjudicate. And there's a lot more nuance involved than most people think that don't know the rules. If you know the rules and those subtle differences between certain different play types, then you're able to adjudicate it properly more often than not. And we see that a lot. But it doesn't mean that there's not going to be fan outrage, because there certainly is. Right.
They demand all sorts of, consistency is what they'll say. But what they don't seem to understand is that it's also advantage, disadvantage. So what might look like a very similar move that was a foul once and then not a foul another time could very well be related to advantage, disadvantage. And that's why that's the key for fouls, right? I would argue that for other things like travels, the different set of criteria that they're going to use to judge. Like mainly, they have to be certain that it happened, right? And they have to get it.
Yes.
They got it. And that's why you might see, somebody got one that they didn't call is because they just couldn't quite see. They got blocked, whatever it was. So it reminds me of like sort of what people are yelling at me on Twitter for. Although thanks for not yelling at me tonight too much. But maybe I stayed away from some foul stuff. But is some like invisible tally that they have in terms of what I'm tweeting. And when they realize it goes slightly into one team than the other, then all of a sudden I'm biased and horrible, and then I'm all sorts of names. And it's like, I don't think that you could, a referee doesn't operate that way either, right? They don't have it in their heads. Although ironically, for the most part, we rarely see just huge differentials in foul calls or free throws. And most of those, when you do see them, there is a very good reason for that because of the style of play.
Yep. And then I think last time I checked with like a few minutes left in the game, I think OKC had like 3 more fouls than the Pacers tonight called on them. And that's because they're trying to catch up. So something I wanted to bring up real quick, if we have a second, is in the NBA officials manual, there's a really great section that talks about the overall game, the officials' approach to the overall game. And it talks about 4 different focal points of the game where games can change and style of play can change. And they list those focal points that the refs need to be really mindful of. One is the first time that subs check into the game. You got to be mindful of any disruptors. The second one is in the third focal point, I believe, is in the second half when if one team's down and they're trying to fight to get back into the game, there could be more rough play and more physicality. And so we have to be mindful of that as well. So those focal points are things that really help us in our mindset, because your mental is one of the biggest things in officiating, right? You've got to have your mind right. And if you referee a game correctly throughout the whole game, by the end of the game, you should be physically and mentally exhausted because you've processed 500 plays that game and you've checked your clocks, 200 times a game. You've checked, you're literally going back and forth between coverage area and stuff like that from matchup to matchup, getting your eyes to the next spot, talking about where you're going to need to be after this play. So like there's so much that goes into officiating, and the overall game and the focal points that they have that go after that really helps them officiate well. I thought this crew, by the way, did an outstanding job tonight. I know it was a blowout game, so there's not going to be as much criticism as there would be in close games, but I thought they did a fantastic job. 3 top-notch officials, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, listen, there was plenty to, I'm sure the fans yelling at it, but when at second glance and third glance, looking at some of the replays they showed, it looked pretty, fine and nothing to see here. I think we talked a little bit about the Caruso Nesmith stuff where Nesmith is in front of Caruso, gets his hands up like he's sort of impeding, and then Caruso just kind of shoves him, not in a violent way or whatever, just kind of just sort of gently shoves him away, and Caruso is the one that gets called for the foul. And you felt like, and I was wondering a little bit about like impeding of progress by Nesmith to start the whole thing, and you didn't feel like that was an issue, and it would really Caruso just deserved to get that foul call.
Yeah, I did. Well, so the 2-hand push to the chest, even though it was not as probably him falling down was not commensurate with the level of contact he received, the way Nesmith fell down. Mm-hmm. However, you can't ignore a 2-hand shove to the chest like that, right? And the reason is you don't want the game to get out of hand. We saw a little bit of that go uncalled in the Fever game that you just did a breakdown on, the Fever Sun game. Yeah. And so we see what those things can lead to with that increased physicality, especially in major games like this. You can't let that go unchecked. With Nesmith at the start of that play, he's the rules for guarding an opponent without the ball is you have to allow, once you take a position in their path, you have to allow sufficient time and distance for them to stop or change direction to avoid contact. In this case, Caruso didn't even try to avoid contact. He just runs right into Nesmith. You see a little hand fighting right there. Once it disengages, then you see Caruso 2-hand shoved to the chest, which you can't ignore in this situation.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought up the game between the Connecticut Sun and the Indiana Fever because, the video I did, I thought I captured some nuances maybe people had missed, and one of those that notions is that you have to understand what the context is between like individual players, right? You have to be studying up on what's going on. And so when you had, oh my goodness gracious, what's her name, Sheldon and Caitlin Clark, their rivalry goes back to Ohio State and Iowa. Yep. And I couldn't quite find anything that was like a physical confrontation between them then, but certainly team wide and going at each other. But clearly, after the first like 5 or 6 minutes, you could tell like you had to keep your eye on this. And
Yes.
I don't know if they did a good enough job doing that because again, the last thing I think as a ref, I don't want to speak out of turn, but the last thing I think you want to see is any kind of melee or fight or any kind of event like that where people can get hurt. Right? I mean, that's got to be the overarching goal out here.
Yeah, and that's another reason back to the point I made about how at the end of a game as a ref, you should be mentally and physically exhausted. You're thinking about all those things in real time. And so literally you're keeping a tally of things in your head. These NBA refs are top notch. They've got knowledge of things that have happened in the past between certain matchups that they recall, things that have happened earlier in the game that they know that their partner had, almost an altercation between these two guys. They told them about it. They talked about it, and then they see that potentially a hard foul. So like these things are things you talk about. And I want to make an interesting point here too, an important point rather, is people who blame officiating for players getting hurt. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying you don't have a point, but we're not the one committing the hard fouls. Okay. We do need to manage the game. We need to manage the overall game and keep things in check the best we can. But players still make up their own minds at a second's notice to go off and do something just crazy, and we can't control that. So when we have, there's games I've officiated where a player gets fouled hard going to the basket, and we've called fouls, and I called a foul on that one. And then the coaches come out to check and they say, you're going to get them hurt. And I'm like, well, I'm not the one fouling him. I did what I was supposed to do. I called the foul, so there's some things that we can do to manage the game that I think they could have done a bit better job in that game. I thought the refs crew stayed above it tonight. I know it wasn't a super close game, but those are the things we need to be aware of throughout any given game. And that's just an official's perspective that may shed some light on some different things.
Absolutely. Well, let's get to our next super chat from the Pioneer. Thank you so much, Pioneer. Really appreciate it. After 6 games, who do you guys think has the advantage going into Game 7? Are the two teams equal or is one team better? Great question. And listen, picking against the home team in a Game 7, while probably not as certain as it used to be, it's still it's got to be in the 70s winning percentage for the home team, easy. So if you're betting, you kind of pretty much have to choose the Thunder. I don't know when they show up like they did tonight or didn't show up like they did tonight. You have to just wwonder what is happening here. Like, what does the Game 7 mean to everybody, and how much did everybody want this to happen? I don't know. But to answer who is better, it kind of feels like OKC's team is better, and that they kind of played like they thought they were better without having to do all the things that actually make them better. And so if you are a better team, you can get away with playing at 85, 87% speed and effort, right? A lot of the time. And we've seen that in this series as well. And it's worked. But when that effort gets down to 75 and then the other team is 100, which Indiana was 100 easy, maybe more, that's when you start getting into these landslides. And then they kind of broke, right? Like then it became 50% effort when all those layups were happening in the third quarter. So I think the other issue here we have to really reckon with is the fact that it's Carlisle versus Dagnall. And I think right now Carlisle is overpoweringly winning that matchup.
Yeah, and so I was going to ask you this too, because I'm going to answer the Pioneers question as well. But what did you see? I felt going into this game, Carlisle was going to have a good game plan for how to attack and how to defend. We talked last live show about them, leaving nothing on the table here. Like, basically you got to do what you got to do to force a Game 7. Was there any changes to the game plan that really stuck out to you tonight from Indiana's standpoint, or do you think it was just a lot more energy, a lot more effort, and you got the home crowd and the momentum and stuff like that?
I didn't notice any like matchup stuff that was any different. I mean, they're very consistent in that respect. They're going to pick them up. They're going to try and wear them down. They got one juicy Siakam on SGA, and SGA hit him up, like it pulled up for a midi and hit it right over him. I thought as it was going up, I'm like, oh, there's another one he's going to miss because of the length, and it didn't. Yep. So, they and then once it got into like the third, it didn't even matter what they were doing. The game was over. But I just feel like what ended up happening was the offense for OKC just crapped the bed. I don't know how else to say it, and like my first impression watching it. Because, like, if you're that good anyway, like they're a great team. They are a great, historically great team. A little pressure isn't going to all of a sudden force you to stand in place, right?
Right. No, you're right.
And so it's like there's nothing that defense does that dictates like a lack of cutting, for instance, right? Or like movement. And so it got so stagnant. I mean, they had like 30 points with a few minutes left in the second quarter or something like that, right? They were really not scoring. And when the shots they were getting were hard and they're all middies, and again, not a lot of threes. And they said we need more threes, and so they did start jacking them up. Right in the third quarter, there was more threes. In the second half, let's see, I think they had 11 at the halftime, right? Yep. So they took 30 overall. So they took a double, but it was literally like I'm gonna moonball some and see what happens.
Right.
And so anyway, so that's a really interesting question, which I think goes down to the coaching and the matchup is. You got to figure out a way to get your players to run offense. And by the way, he hasn't been doing it that well all series long. They haven't been running great offense. They're just good, right? And they're going to hit these tough shots. So that's the mirage potentially, because if you go to win a game 7, you're not running good offense. You're not setting, weak side screens. You're not getting cuts. I mean, good luck, right? Like that's going to be tough. Every shot's going to be tough.
Yeah, and this is going to change in Game 7. Both teams are going to come out prepared. I think we're going to be treated to a fantastic Game 7. But to answer the Pioneers' question, I think after Game 6 right now, going into Game 7, I think Indiana has the advantage. I think you'd much rather go into a Game 7 coming off the way you played tonight than the way the Thunder played tonight. Now, we can talk about how the Thunder are going to be back at home, that this is kind of an anomaly for them tonight. The Pacers really haven't, to my knowledge, just beaten the brakes off somebody like this, so they've usually squeaked out some close wins and stuff as the playoff series goes along. But in my opinion, I think Indiana has an advantage, but I think that's going to be offset a little bit with how OKC comes out and the adjustments they make. I just don't know I think when it gets to a Game 7, the players have to play, but I put a lot of stock in the coaching in Game 7, and I think Carlisle has the advantage.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if Carlisle pulls something out of his hat that we haven't really seen before, maybe an offensive set or maybe even a defensive thing, just to see what happens. I'm kind of curious. Damon has won another steak dinner. I want to know why. So tell me that. Here's how you get your comment on the screen. A great video on Caitlin Clark today, by the way. Thank you so much, Default. And even Matthew is saying he has Pacers in Game 7 plus 1,100. And I've never been able to wrap my head around what that means. What are the odds when it's plus 1,100? If you bet $1, you win $1,100.
If you bet $100, you'd win $1,100.
$100. So it's 10x basically, or maybe
exactly
10x.
Yeah,
something like that, right? Okay.
So if you bet $100, you'd win $1,100.
Okay, that's a pretty good odds if you can pull it out. I better check.
Pretty good payout.
Yeah. Well, let's get to Nikhil Attar. Nikhil is one of the oldest people who's been in the conversation for the longest time. And great to see you. Glad to see you're doing well and out there. Thanks so much, Nick. Game 7, yay. When they don't get turnovers, OKC offense is suspect. That's a good point. Mm-hmm. Did you see any signs of injuries to Halliburton or anywhere else? He looked okay to me. Listen, we got to give, first of all, TJ McConnell, again, just keeps. Yes. The fact that I haven't made this shirt yet is killing me. That TJ McConnell is good. What's hard is when you want to design a T-shirt and it's just like text. The font to me is so important, and haven't been able to find a font that I like that captures it right. So
that's the exact thing you said. That's the exact thing you said to me remember when I made those the ref basketball T-shirts. And you were all about the font. I'll send them to you, and you're like, all right, but maybe the font change on this a little bit.
I'm a font snob, I will admit it, but it's my background a little bit with my art background. And which reminds me, I don't know if you ever watched Saturday Night Live, but when they have Ryan Gosling on, he's had a couple of recurring sketches about the font in the Titanic. Poster.
Oh yes,
not Titanic. It's
Yep.
Have you seen that when they use the papyrus font? And I got to tell you, like I didn't write that sketch, but if I'd ever was going to write a sketch that got on my spot, that would be the one I would have written, and I never felt more seen. But anyway, but to get back to Nick's point, here's the thing: what Halliburton did really well with was left-footed jumps a lot. To take the strain off of the right leg and the right calf. So that was one thing you saw. He had a lefty runner with a left foot jump, left hand finish from the dotted line area, right? I mean, that's insane how hard that was and really toughly contested. But I got to tell you, other than that, like on the defensively, he was moving. He had a steal that no-look pass for Siakam for the dunk. By the way, I tweeted that out. That is the moment when the Pacers realize they're going to win the title. You know, I mean, that's the galvanizing thing. We're like, whoa, we got this now. And OKC it should be very concerned for all those reasons, and kind of tying into what you said not long ago.
Yeah, I agree. And that, listen, I think talking about turnovers, it's a really important point, because OKC did not force the first turnover from Indiana until I had it marked down here, like 10:05 in the second quarter. Mm-hmm. That's the first turnover that they forced. Indiana's first turnover. So if they're not forcing a lot of turnovers, it's not leading to fast breaks. It's not leading to those it's not leading to those fast break points. Like, they got to set up their offense, and that's even more of a reason for them to get involved on offensive end in the front court, right? They don't have those breaks. They need to have more efficient possessions in the front court, and we didn't see that from them tonight. So the lack of turnovers there, and then also on the flip side, we were talking at halftime, I believe. You had said something about SGA. If OKC wants to have a chance in the second half, SGA needs to come out strong at the start of the third. And we were talking about how he had a quiet 15 points in the first half, but he had 5 turnovers, and those were bad turnovers. And a lot of them led to points. So, one team forced the turnovers tonight, the other one didn't. One team hit the threes tonight, the other one didn't. It's going to be interesting to see what Game 7 has in store for us.
Oh, and a lot of the turnovers were from the stagnant offense. So he's sitting there pounding the ball in the post, no one's moving, and then Nesmith comes over. It's a double, and he just throws the ball right to Nesmith. And then the Hallie play they were talking about, literally Hallie just leaves his man. It goes in, like, doubles the guy near the top of the key. Like, you shouldn't be able to do that, but he can, because no one's moving and no one is standing around. So that was embarrassing. I got to tell you, not that there's any conspiracies going on, but when I saw that play, I'm like, what is happening? Like, it was Game 7, like, ordered by somebody to have to happen? I don't know what else to make of that, because, again, they just looked listless, and they didn't seem like they had any direction. They didn't, it's not the team we'd seen. But that said, they had been playing offense like this for the whole time. Like, not a lot of movement, not a lot of those stuff. And it was frustrating, because you got to have something in your bag if it's not working that way. And man, it was
and J-Dub didn't really get involved tonight anywhere close to the way we've seen him get involved in the last 3 games offensively.
I have to say, I think in the beginning he was. I felt
he was in the beginning.
Like, in the first quarter, I'm like, God, he's being that great number 2 and really giving him a lot. I hopefully, let me see if I can refresh and get to the first half stats. Let's see if this works yet. Not yet, but when it comes on, we'll go through it. But you're right. Like, it was just ineffective. Even the 15 points that SGA had, like you said, was very quiet, very not impactful at all. And then it was, especially with the turnovers. So, well, let's bring in Chris to get his perspective on what he thought about the game tonight. Chris, what's happening, my man?
What's going on, guys? How you guys doing?
Hey, good, Chris. What's up, man?
As always, guys, what's your overview so far?
Like you guys were saying, like, OKC came out and they were really sloppy to just the whole first half. Pretty sloppy play. Like you said, Coach, they were listless. They didn't really move with purpose, especially on offense. A lot of defensive mistakes. Not a lot of movement. Bad turnovers. SGA not realizing where the double's coming from. A lot of guys turning their back and allowing the Pacers to steal the ball. Just dumb plays like and those passes at the top of the key when the guy's like 8 feet away. The lazy pass, and they just let the Pacers get in transition. So I think this is more about OKC, but also, I mean, I don't want to say like the generic basketball stuff. Like, the Pacers hit shots today, so hit their threes, especially in the first half.
Yeah, but by the way, in that first 4 minutes of the third quarter, when nobody scored, that was OKC's chance. The Pacers must have had 3 or 4 wide open threes.
Yeah,
that was like the game was going to be over anyway at that point. So I want to go through and look at that. But I think my focus in the breakdown for tomorrow would probably end up being something about the OKC offense. Who's to blame? Why did that happen? And I'm sure I'll see some things about how the pressure and whatever, but like, I don't know. I'm going to feel like, the coach didn't get on them, and there was no leadership, and there was no, they don't have a point guard, right? They don't have that guy. They don't necessarily need it, I guess, but you know what I mean? That's interesting. They don't have that guy that would say, hey, get in that spot. We're going to run this. We're going to find this. We're going to force a switch or whatever and get an attack or something. And that, at this level, could hurt you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, let's get to
Hey,
another super chat. We got another. They keep coming through, and thank you guys so much for all these super chats. Really helps us keep the show going. Joe B, always great to see you. Thank you so much, Joe. I was thinking that if Hallie wasn't 100% going into tonight, that it would be a wrap. Me too. This win was definitely a team effort, but don't forget, with Hallie being 50% and then two other Pacers playing like terrible, they were down 2 with 4 minutes to go, maybe even less. In game 5. So these guys battle and they hang around, and they know, like here's the thing: if this goes to a game 7 and it's a very close game, like, can you pick against the Pacers down the stretch? I don't know.
I don't think you can, even though it's at OKC. I just down the stretch, you just feel like the Pacers are going to get it done. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting if they can keep it close in game 7. I think we're going to see a finish for the ages.
Oh, I thought you were going to say if they keep it close, then it's the Pacers going to win.
And I didn't say that, but it was unintentional that I didn't say that. I said a finish for the ages because I think it's just going to come down to the wire, and we'll probably see something spectacular from Halliburton.
Yeah, no, that would be a nice fitting ending to the season. I think is improbable. At some point, we have to figure out why Indiana didn't play better in the regular season, because they clearly I can't picture any other East team being better than this.
Yeah, well, they said that Halliburton wasn't right for the first half. It wasn't until like January, February is where he got over whatever was ailing him into the Olympics last summer and the beginning of this year.
Because remember, he didn't really play in the Olympics, so
yeah. But he didn't play obviously because the team was stacked, but there was something wrong with his leg.
Oh, really?
Something.
Even then? Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. I mean, and that's part of it. And then I guess the other guys just didn't get the glow. Like Nembhard, I don't think played this well either. I mean, because I feel like if in the regular season, if it was like now and Hallie was not playing a lot and they needed Nembhard, like against the bottom 10, 12 teams and defensively, you could see Nembhard doing his ISO stuff, step back threes. He's good at that. And I don't know if he was quite feeling it yet until we got later on in the season or whatever. But I would be very concerned if I'm in the Eastern Conference going into next year, whatever happens with Game 7. This Indiana team I think they're all. We got to see they're all coming back. But this kind of experience is the kind of thing you'll see that everybody gets better in the next year.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think that the play that we saw tonight from the whole Pacers team, instead of just a couple of players here and there, like that was kind of special tonight for them. That's what they needed to get that, to go into a game 7 with some momentum, just having everybody contribute, and heck of a win for them, man. I mean, beat the brakes off of them.
Well, let's get to our next super chat from Ben. Thank you so much, Ben. Always great to see you as well. Yes, a game 7, so I can watch it, be off from work on a Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific, which 8 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't know about you. I'm excited as all heck to be, involved in the game 7, but I'm also ready for this season to be done. Aren't you?
I don't know, man. I think I'm going to go with the Mark Jones sentiment from last. If they could play a 12-game final series, I think I would take it, man. I'm not ready for basketball season to be over yet. So it's been an exciting playoffs. For me, it's going to be sad to see it come to an end. And I enjoy doing these with you guys after the games too, and being able to talk to all these people in the comments. And it's been a fun ride, man. But we got something to look forward to Sunday night. I'll be coming back from ref camp. I leave tomorrow morning. I'll be coming back Sunday night, and I'll be back just in time to watch the game. So I'm pumped.
Well, I have to go to Japan for 2 weeks, and we scheduled it for right after the final. So it ended up being perfect. I'm leaving on Wednesday. So, by the way, if you're out there and you're in Japan, email me, coachnick@bballbreakdown.com. I'm trying to get a real authentic Japanese experience as much as I can versus just having totally being a tourist, which we have plenty of that stuff planned as well. So anybody out there, if you want to reach out, I'm trying to figure out, people to meet up with and, just get a real, meet real people that would live there and not just, the typical stuff you'd see as an ugly American.
That's interesting. I just recruited a new referee. She's a brand new referee. She just got through playing 4 years of D1 women's college basketball. She's got really good talent, but she's Japanese American, and she just went for her 3-week trip back to Japan. Just got back from it. She loved it, man. It was
awesome.
Great.
Yeah, I cannot wait. It's gonna be great. Well, let's get to Esso Akune. Thank you so much, Esso. Really appreciate the super chat. Is OKC really better than the Pacers? OKC offense is so one-dimensional. It's not like the Pacers are winning because they're hitting a million threes. I mean, yes. It's a great question. I mean, I don't know. It's still hard for me to sort of say that they're not better, as we've seen a lot of evidence of that. But again, we've also seen plenty of evidence the other way. So what do you guys think? Who is there a better team in this matchup?
We've had discussions. We've kind of beat a dead horse on it over the course of the playoffs, because we've discussed things like, is the duo of Turner and Siakam better than Chet and Hartenstein? We've discussed, is there a better 1-2 punch or like a better duo in the league than SGA and J-Dub, and then we've talked at length about the Pacers' ability to close out games and be good in the clutch. I don't know. For me personally, I think the duo of SGA and J-Dub, then Hartenstein and Chet, I think the depth we've talked about a lot for OKC makes them more of a complete team. I don't know if I'm prepared to say they're better than the Pacers or that one team's better than the other. I think there's a reason this series is going to Game 7, and this is the first Game 7 we've seen in how many years. And I think it's because they're probably evenly matched for different reasons, different types of teams, but still very evenly matched.
What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, they're pretty evenly matched. OKC's defense allows them to be able to, their versatility on defense allows them to play anybody, any team. And I think it's the inverse with the Pacers. Their offense is it's so versatile. They're able to play against anybody, and make it competitive.
Mm-hmm.
Just with the up and down nature, and whether they're down or whether they're up, they play the same way. While most teams in the NBA, you see when they have a big lead, they slow it down and stuff like that. The Pacers don't do that, so they're never out of the game ever,
Yeah.
as we've seen this whole playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. And then that is the best part about that, is because the Pacers can go fast, right? Like, and they can spread the floor. Like, yeah, they're never out of it. Whereas there are teams where, like, if they're down 18 heading into the fourth, like, they're just not going to even score 18 points, much less hold them to 0 and come all the way back. So that's another big one. And Halliburton is just, when he plays like he does tonight, and his numbers aren't like, let's see here, they didn't jump off the screen, but he had 14 points, 5 of 12 shooting, 3 of 7 from 3, and
He only
5
played 23 minutes, and that's another win right there too.
Right, because nobody played more than
Yeah.
Well, actually,
that's a huge win for them.
Yeah,
That's a huge win for him because he basically gets a game and a half of rest, right?
I mean, and another great point. And then and then they get some other guys who haven't played a lot, even getting their legs moving a little bit too, which is never a bad thing in case they might need something for Game 7, right? Yeah. So I mean, I like where you're going with that, Chip, as far as like the momentum of this big play. I would love to know what the record is in a Game 7 for teams that were down 2-3 in Game 6. Like the away team. Well, first of all, we have to know what the Game 7 record is for the away team, and then we got to find out, when you're down. Although, right, because the away team could have been up 3-2 and lost at home in Game 6, and then go away. But I want to know what it happens when you lose, or when you win Game 6 at home, and then what that record is for Game 7. I think that would be interesting.
Yeah, that would definitely be interesting.
Yeah,
playoffs
but again,
or finals?
it might not have happened very much at all, so I don't know.
I guess you're thinking playoffs or the finals?
I was thinking the finals, but maybe even the playoffs itself might not be that many. Obviously the playoffs, and there's a lot of Game 7s, but there's not too many. Yeah, there's not too many finals Game 7s. There was the Warriors and Cavs.
But yeah, they were never in the scenario that you mentioned.
Right, because it was 3-1. So at any rate, interesting stuff. And again, once you get past like if you get like 10 years ago or beyond 10 years ago, before the 3-point era, then there isn't much to glean from those records anymore, I don't think.
Right.
Yeah. So, all right. So
speaking of Game 7, I just need to go ahead and put this out there. You guys know who you're going to see in Game 7, right? Like, we know who's going to be we know Scott's going to be on the crew, right? Everybody knows that. We can go ahead and just kind of get that out there. He's the best ref in the NBA. I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for that, but he's absolutely the best ref in the NBA, and he is the one you want on the big games. That's why they put him on Game 4, so that they can put him on a potential Game 7. He's been on Game 4s 2 of the last 3 finals. and ended up not getting to get the Game 7 because they were slating him for Game 7, and it never happened. And then he was on Game 3 the 2 years before that in the finals, and then it didn't even work Game 5 or 6 in the 2 series that needed that. So we've only gotten to see him once in the finals for the last handful of years. We're finally going to get to see him twice. I'm going to get to see him twice, and I love watching him. He's going to be great on Game 7. I know it.
Nice. Well, it looks like maybe our last super chat perhaps is from Cliffside. Always great to have Cliff be part of the show. Thank you so much, Cliffside. Will you break down Summer League? Wait, can you make a shoe stink? Of course, we'll be doing Summer League. We'll be doing whatever we got to do the KD breakdown whenever he goes somewhere. Any other free agent stuff? Although I feel like the free agency stuff isn't huge this year. Like I don't know. Am I crazy? The available free
only like 3 teams have money. It's probably going to be a lot of trades though.
Yeah, but like I'm thinking of like who's even a free agent this year. I don't know if it's like any huge.
Nas Reed, Nikhil Alexander Walker.
Yeah.
Is Brook Lopez a free agent?
Okay, I mean we're getting to Brook Lopez as the number 3. But the interesting thing about that, we can get we'll wrap this up in a minute. But I was thinking about this because they're talking about KD going to Minnesota. Like maybe
yeah. But from what I heard from listening to all these podcasts, it's that the Suns have all the offers and they're just trying to figure out which one they want to pick, basically. Is based off what I've heard.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm telling you, if Minnesota wants to take that next step, they're not going to do a coaching change, which I thought maybe could have been like what the Knicks did. But I think first of all, if they could trade Rudy and then sign Nas Reed, like that has to be the same thing, right? They would need Nas to lose Rudy. I believe that's what they would need. Because I think Nas can play some defense, and then whatever they give him he gets on offense is so much higher. But then if you get KD in any kind of scenario, you can't really have Randall.
He's a free agent. He has a player option.
Oh, he's an
opt out though. But there isn't anyone,
right?
Yeah, there isn't anyone who could pay him. That's the thing. Well, a good team that
no one that wants to pay, right? I don't think. I mean, let's just see what his is. Do you know what it is?
Is it 30? Is it 35?
Let's go. I'll just scroll here. Contracts. His option is for 30.9.
30.9.
It actually goes down. He made 33 this year, and the player option is for 30.9. That's a lot of money.
Yep.
And you know what?
He played great.
Like, he played himself into what should be a good contract.
Yeah, but definitely.
I just don't know. Yeah, if anybody who has that money would want him, and what the timeline fits with where he is. And but if they are going to try and get KD, then they're going to have to trade Randall if he opts in. I think, right? I just don't see how that would work.
Yeah, they wouldn't be able to have both of them.
Right. I mean, unless I want to try KD at center, alongside Randall, and weird.
A 38-year-old KD at center.
No. So and by the way, listen, I hate to say anything bad about KD, and the guy has been having terrific seasons with very little sign of aging, but I don't know. There's very few teams I think that he fits into timeline wise as well. Like Houston to me doesn't make any sense, right?
They're interesting.
I feel like he's just going to be a rental wherever he goes. You know what I mean? Like I don't think that I don't know many teams, and maybe I read something about this, but I echo the sentiment. Is like I don't know many teams that are wanting to that at his age right now are feeling like he's going to be with them for a few years and kind of end his career there. You know what I mean? I feel like we're probably getting to that stage where if he goes somewhere, it's probably going to be for a year. Maybe move somewhere else.
I mean, he's going to retire within a couple of years, right? Like he can't keep playing this long. So let me just see what his contract is because he's under contract. Yeah. Do we know? I'm going to tell you unless you tell me.
I think this would be his last contract.
Oh my goodness! Where is it? Current contract. Yeah, he's only signed for 25-26 for $54.7 million. Holy moly! That's a lot of money. It's a lot of bread. So that's interesting. You get him for the year, and then who knows, right? Like what's going to happen at that point? If he's going to sign.
Well, I think anywhere he signs, he would. The deal is that he gets an extension there. I don't think they're just going to sign him just for the year.
Right. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense too. Well, we should keep our eye on that one because again, like Houston, in my mind, they should get rid of
Jalen Green.
what of who?
Jalen Green.
Oh, well, let's put a pin in that one because I'm thinking it has to be the Canadian. Gosh,
Oh, Dylan Brooks.
Brooks.
Yeah, but man.
Well, listen, because you got Thompson and Jabari. Like, I love Jabari Smith. I think Thompson is going to be absolutely fantastic. Then you have Eason. Like, you don't need Brooks in that. Then you can move on and package him for something or other, and then maybe even Green, and then bring in another guard, a more reliable guard, I suppose could be the word.
I think they have that off the bench though with Reed Shepherd.
I wish Combo was here to talk about that because he's a big Reed Shepherd fan, and I've been like, I just don't see it.
Yeah, I'm a fan. I watched them all last year. I'm a big fan of his.
You watched them all last year in Houston?
No, in college.
Oh, in college.
College.
I don't know. I studied him in summer league, like against the pros, and I studied him in the first half of the year when we got spot minutes. He didn't play a ton, and it just seemed like the game was too big, too fast, too hard. He just whatever. But man, he's got a nice pull up mid range game. That's an interesting.
Yeah, he can shoot. His first G League game, or he dropped 50 points. His first and only, I think.
No, well, I went through some. He must have played more than that because I went through all of his possessions in G League last year, in summer league, and there was a lot of problematic evidence in my mind of unless I'm going crazy and it was the regular season, but I'm pretty sure as I remember it was the summer league because everyone was oohing and eyeing. I'm like, okay, let's dig in, let's see what we got, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, like finishing at the rim was not there. It was like yikes.
Yeah, definitely not there yet. Definitely not there yet.
And like, getting ripped a little bit here and there and like, being a little shaky. Like it just didn't seem like, and by the way, that just could be a normal progression. How many years did he play in college? One?
It's one.
Yeah. And so that's another part of it, which I tend to be bad at factoring in sometimes, just assuming that they're all going to be like Luka Doncic, I guess, coming in. So you'll see that. So we'll see. Maybe he'll make that jump like we have seen, after 1 year of getting the feet wet and all that stuff. But
yeah, like he given the opportunity, based off what I've seen in college, like given the opportunity, he is a willing defender. He gets into passing lanes. He has great hands, great instincts. Watching TJ McConnell right now, I'm like, I think Reed Shepherd could do that in like 4 or 5 years. Definitely. He's younger, only 1 year in college compared to TJ played 4 years. If Reed Shepherd played 4 years in college, he'd be the best player in college.
Right. And it would also answer the question of what would TJ McConnell look like if he actually had a jump shot?
Yeah, that's exactly. I think Reed Shepherd shot almost like 48% from three in college. So
yeah,
he can shoot.
I'm not going to doubt he can shoot it. He can. He's proved in it in the small sample sizes. I don't think he shot well from the three this year. Which whatever.
Yeah, definitely not.
But I did see enough evidence that he, the pull up stuff from mid range is good, and that's a nice place to start. Like to get your feet wet there and get that under control first. It's fine. But yeah, he has his work cut out for him this summer to really make that next level jump. And we've seen that, not to like use like, okay, the same guards that all look alike, but like, Peyton Pritchard kind of probably had the similar arc as well.
Same thing.
And he became just nasty, like it might take him a couple of years, but he's just a bucket and a half.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's his
shooting?
He's a free agent maybe, right? Or no?
Pritchard? No.
Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting. So at any rate, all right. Well, listen, I think we covered everything we had to cover. It's
are you going to be breaking down any WNBA games this summer?
Well, so I did the one today on the Connecticut versus Indiana, and listen, I've done a bunch of Caitlin Clark or some Caitlin Clark from last year, and everyone was really into them, and they did well. So obviously, this is a business, and I have to make sure that they'll do well. The Asia Wilson one, not so much, even though I thought that was a really good video. So. I would like to do a lot of WNBA, and so I'll keep my eye on that. I get FIBA is coming, or not FIBA. EuroLeague is coming up again at some point, kind of like when the NBA does, but there might be some stuff in there. Yep. And then there's summer league, there's trades, there's free agency, retro breakdown. Maybe I can find an old game in there that could be fun to go.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. So, my work is not done except for the 2 weeks I'm going to be in Japan.
Right.
Back, and then we'll see what happens. But yeah, so we'll be around. But listen, we got one more live show at least. Well, I mean, we got the Game 7 live show. So you guys will be here. We'll get it done. And
hey, we got to get Mark Jones said he was coming back with us on Game 7. So we got to see.
That was a commit, right? All right, I'll hold.
Yeah, he predicted it.
Yeah,
all right.
He said I'll come back after Game 7. So
all right. Well, you know what? Maybe we'll find some other special guest stars to come on in too while I'm thinking about it.
Oh, that would be a blast, man. Hey, I think we got one more super chat.
That's why you're here. Oh, Cliff snuck it in there. Cliff's eye. Thank you so much. How do refs improve? Oh, of course, Chip's not going to miss this one. Where do they get the reps?
I just saw one pop up. I didn't look at it yet. I was talking to you guys, but yeah. Great question, Cliffside. A bunch of various ways that we improve. For example, I'm going to 5 referee camps this summer. I've already gone to 1 last weekend. I've got this weekend. I've got another one. I've got 3 other ones coming up, a D1 camp and a couple other ones. So anyway, those are how we improve during the summer. We get reps at those camps. We work on the court. We get evaluated by evaluators. But as for NBA referees, they've got basically their tune-up is for the next season is summer league. But that's how they get their reps. But reps don't just come on the court for us. A big part of what we do is break down game film. So a lot of these NBA officials throughout the season have broken down their own game film constantly. They do it every day. That's their job, So even when they're not reffing, they're breaking down game film. The league is sending them clips from their game. They got to do their post-game report after every game, the crew chief does, and they have their crew work on that together where they select a handful of plays from their game that were plays of interest and send it in their post-game report into the league after every single game that they ref. So they even do a deep dive on that and break down plays. They have their own training camp type thing. So they all come back and they do like a week-long training camp to where they're sitting in classroom sessions and their people are teaching them, like, the people that the Monty McCutcheons and all those guys, are contributing to that. They're showing plays on the screen. The camp I went to this last weekend is no different than what they'll go through where, you sit there and we probably looked at 100 plays and we talked about the overall game. We talked about running the game, managing the game. We talked about all different facets of that. And just to let you know is like one of the things that we don't really look at is whether or not a call is correct or not. We kind of know when we see it on film if it was correct or not. As officials, what we look for is if we did miss it, why did we miss it? And that's the big part that we break down when we look at film is why did we miss it? Were we stacked? Did we get a bad angle? Were we in the wrong position? Did we forget to position adjust? Did we lose focus? Did we not get our eyes to the right place? Like all those type things are things that we as officials look for to try to get better. I mean, possession by possession. And that we do that with game film and then reps, for the NBA officials, it'll be in summer league where they're going to get some more game time reps. And that those are for up and coming officials too. The G League officials get a lot of those, but in summer league and training camps is when they get reps, and that's kind of how they do it, man.
All right. Well, great answer there. Great question, Cliff, and great questions, everybody out there for the super chats and that great little discussion going on in the comments as well. Paige Beckers, love her game as well. I might like her game even better than Caitlin Clark's. So I got to figure out what I'm going to do for that. Now, remind me though, is she playing right now?
Yeah.
Paige
number 1, right? And
yeah, she's playing.
Yeah.
Who got her?
She had it Dallas.
Yeah, the Wings. Yep.
All right, so Dallas got both number 1s, right? Okay.
Yeah, she's already averaging more points per or like a touch, like 17.7 points a game, which is a little bit better than Caitlin was in her rookie season. Got more assists per game than Caitlin did in her rookie season, so she's coming out hot. It'll be interesting to see those matchups between Paige and Caitlin too. I think.
Do we know when Indiana plays Dallas?
I can look it up. Indiana's playing the Valkyrie right now. The Fever are playing the Valkyrie right now, and Valkyrie Golden State is beating them by 11 with two minutes left.
10. All right, good stuff. Well, thank you guys so much for being on the show and staying up with me on the East Coast, and we'll be back Game 7 Sunday. Don't go anywhere, guys, and stay tuned for the Game 6 breakdown. I'll get it out ASAP tomorrow, and then we'll have the Game 7 breakdown. We're going to get business. So thanks. Oh, who pays? Ha pays. Excuse me. Snuck one in there. Skip thinks OKC will win Game 7 by 17. Thoughts? I guess it's Skip Bayless. Game 7 by
Uh,
17. Like that's a strange number, but okay.
It's a strange number. Skip's a strange person, right?
Yeah, right. Is that what he does? I don't really watch him, but something tells me like Skip isn't so bad compared to some of the other bigger names like we won't mention.
he's not on TV anymore though, right? He retired,
Oh, he did.
right?
I don't know.
think
I
he's on
haven't seen
TV.
him in a while, so
Yeah, he's not on TV anymore.
I must have tweeted that out. All right. Well, so
Yeah.
17. Again, if you want to pick against the Thunder, the home team, then the odds are really not in your favor, right? Like in any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
But
If the Thunder are gonna win, they have to blow out the Pacers. But if it's a close game, I
There
don't
you
see the Pacers losing.
okay,
It's
right, and that
But
maybe
maybe if you're gonna pick,
or
yeah,
right.
yeah, maybe if you're gonna pick OKC, them winning by 17 is not a bad pick because that's probably gonna
Yeah.
be what it takes to get
They're
it
going to
done.
have to do that, and that tracks for me too, and that can happen too. We've seen Game 7s kind of break apart somewhere in that third quarter. That team goes up by 10, 11. The other team starts to panic a little bit and shoots a couple threes, and then all of a sudden they're running out, and then the game gets loose really quick. So we've seen that too, but a little bit less, I think, in the 3-point era. But okay, I guess I didn't lock anybody down, did I? In terms of what the prediction is going to be, Chip, you got Indiana.
I'm gonna go. Gosh, I'm gonna go Indiana by 2.
Chris.
Indiana by 6.
Oh wow! I feel like I'm just going to have to be. I don't know. I'm going to just go OKC by 9. I don't know.
And keep in mind that kind of goes true with what we've been predicting because I think at the start of the series, like I know I picked Pacers in 7, and so I have to pick them.
Yeah.
Well, after the game 1, the Pacers won it. I said this is a 7-game series.
Yeah, you did.
So that I felt pretty good about. But yeah, and I probably would even back then said OKC again. So yeah, so I'm going to stick with that. Okay, so we got 2 Indianas and 1 OKC. We'll have to find out what happens when we get back when we reconvene on Sunday. So
we will.
We'll see you all back then. Everybody out there,
Wait.
thanks so much for being part of the show. And don't forget, sports fans, at B-Ball Breakdown, not a channel. We're a conversation. You in? Are you in, guys?